Hey, what's up, guys? It's Mr. Hopok here for a homework help video on lesson 4.1 linear non-proportional relationships homework. We kind of worked some of these in class, okay? So I'm just going to work number 2 because it has a graph. Number 1 is just like number 2, but you don't have to make a graph. So I'm going to work number 2 since you have to do a graph there. So it says the entrance fee for Wally World theme park is $30. Visitors purchase additional $3 tickets for rides, games, and food. The equation y equals 3x plus 30 gives the total cost y to visit the park, including purchasing x tickets. Make a table and a graph. So, in order to make a table, I know x is on top, y is on the bottom. Now, in the description, it told me what x was. X was tickets right there. So, x is tickets, and y is the total cost. So, y is total cost. So, now I have that. I can make some columns here. A good rule of thumb is to just maybe always go like 4 columns out, okay, and then you can close your table up if you want. Totally up to you. So the question I always start with is the number I always start with is 0. Okay, you're basically going to be substituting values into this equation, what we call an input-output table. So we input an x into the table, then we substitute it into the equation to see what we get, the y. So let's input x as 0. Okay, so what is y when x is 0? Well, in order to find that, you have to write your equation out. Y equals 3x plus 30. What is y when x is 0? So we're going to substitute 0 in for x. When we do that, 3 times 0 is just 0. 0 plus 30 is y equals 30. So when x is 0, y is 30. Go to another number. Let's go 2 tickets. Let's say you're going to decide to purchase 2 tickets. You could say 1. You could say 10. It's totally up to you. So let's say 2 tickets. So write my equation, 3x plus 30, and I want to know what y is when x is 2. So substitute your 2 in, 3 times 2 plus 30. Well, that's y equals 6 plus 30, which would be y equals 36. So when x is 2, y is 36. Let's do another number. Let's look at 4. So y equals 3x plus 30. That's our equation that the problem gave us right here. Substitute 4 in for x. Y equals 3 times 4 plus 30. And I got y equals 12 plus 30, which is y equals 42. Again, you might be saying, where are you coming up with these numbers? I'm just picking these numbers off the top of my head. Trying to keep them small because, remember, I have a graph. And then I'm just going to go with 10. Okay, so y equals 3x plus 30. I'm going to substitute 10 in for x to see what y is. Y equals 3 times 10 plus 30. So I got y equals 30 plus 30, which is y equals 60. Okay. Now I have my table complete. I have my work here representing the table. Now I make a graph. I know it's the y and the x, and label the origin. Label your graph, Wally World theme, or we can say theme park. Okay, now label your axes. Now looking at your axes, I got 0, 2, 4, and 10, so I'm just going to go up by ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I got 30, 36, 42, and 60, so it would probably be best to go up by 10s here. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay? Now once I have that, I'm going to label these. I'm going to use these XY coordinates basically because all of this right here is XY coordinates. We got 0, 30. We got 2, 36. We have 4, 42, and we have 10, 60. Those are all coordinate points right there. So now we're going to plot those. So I got 0, 30. I put a point there. My next point is 236. So 2 and then 36, which would be just past that 30. 442. So 442 would be just past that. And then 1060. So 10 and then 60 is up here. Then from there, I'll take my straight edge and I will graph this line as straight as possible. Okay. So your two steps were to make a table and a graph. I've made the table that represents the equation, and I've made a graph that represents that equation. Okay. Now let's go to the back side. I'll work a couple of these on the back. So the back side looks at, let's just look at number 4 and let's look at number 4. Let's look at number 4 real quick. So number 4, you have your x values. The only thing you have to do is substitute that into the x each time to find your y. So it looks like this. So my first one is y equals 2x minus 3. So y equals 2. The first x is negative 2 minus 3. So that would be y equals negative 4 minus 3, which would give me y equals negative 7. So when x is 2, y is negative 7 with that equation. I go to the next one. I got y equals 2x minus 3. Y equals 2 times negative 1 minus 3. That will give me y equals negative 2 minus 3, which is negative 5. So y equals negative 5. I go to 0. Y equals 2x minus 3, which is y equals 2 times 0 minus 3, which is y equals 0 minus 3. So when x is 0, y is 3. Negative 3, because 0 minus 3 is negative 3. 1, y equals 2x minus 3. Y equals 2 times 1 minus 3, which would be y equals 2 minus 3, which is negative 1. 2, we got y equals 2x minus 3. So it's very repetitive. So 2 times 2 minus 3, y equals 4 minus 3, which is 1. Okay. Looking at number 5, I'm going to do this one since it has the fraction. That fraction may try to mess with you a little bit. Now this one down here, this one should be the easiest. Number 8 should be pretty easy, because if you say 0 for x, that's just y equals x minus 1, which is y equals 0 minus 1, which is y is negative 1. So that one should be pretty easy. So when x is 0, y is negative 1. Go to 1, y equals 1 minus 1. So when x is 1, y is 0. And just to kind of get you going, you just got to come up with the x's and y's. So looking at this one, 3 halves x plus 1. So when x is negative 4, what is it? So I'm going to say y equals 3 halves x plus 1. So I'll say y equals 3 halves times 4 over 1 plus 1. So when I do that, I got y equals, that becomes 12 over 2. If you multiply the numerators and denominators, and let me zoom in on that. Sorry about that. Let me zoom in. So that becomes 3 halves. When negative 4 is in there, that's negative 12 over 2 plus 1. So that becomes y equals negative 6 plus 1, which would be negative 5. So when x is negative 4, y is negative 5. Now 0. So y equals 3 halves x plus 1. So y equals 3 halves times 0 plus 1. That just cancels, leaving me with y equals 1. Now when you go to the next one, y equals 3 halves x plus 1. Substitute 4 in for x. Y equals 3 halves times 4 plus 1. And you could say 4 over 1, right? Sorry about that. Let me scoot that over. And that would be, it's the same thing as this over here, but it's going to be positive. So 3 times 4 is 12. So you get 12 over 2. Y equals 12 over 2 plus 1, which is y equals 6 plus 1, which is 7. So when x is positive 4, y is 7. Pick two other numbers. Hey, I would go with numbers that can basically can be divided by 2. So I'm going to go with, let's go with 6. So I'm going to say y equals 3 halves x plus 1. So y equals 3 halves times 6 over 1 plus 1. So then you got 3 times 6 is 18 over 2 plus 1. Y equals 9 plus 1. Y equals 10. So when x is 6, y is 10. And I would do 8 as my next one. Y equals, sorry about that. You can't scream at me to turn it over on here. I apologize. 3 halves x plus 1. So that's how I got the 10. You multiply, put the 6 over 1, write it as a fraction. Multiply 18 over 2. 18 over 2 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So y equals 3 halves, and I said 8. So 3/2 times 8 over 1, I write as a fraction. 3 times 8 is 24. 2 times 1 is 2. Plus 1, 24 over 2 is 12. 12 plus 1 is 13. So if I zoom back out, I have my table. Okay, so these are input-output tables. When you give an equation, you just input the values in. Hey, that concludes this homework help video for lesson 4.1. Hope it helps, and I'll see you tomorrow.